Hi, this is Gary Berger of Berger Law. I'm coming to you on Friday, 5/29/20 with another edition of our Ask a Lawyer show. What we've done for a number of weeks now is we've combined a Instacart giveaway that we're doing to help folks out in this pandemic with answering people's questions on a Facebook Live show. I just sit and do it. I'm sitting outside now. It's after Memorial Day, so I thought appropriate to pull out the seersucker for a little bit of little spring, a little enjoying the summer suit weather. And what I try to do on this broadcast or this Facebook Live show is sit and answer the questions that are in the forefront of people's minds, and that things that they might have to. And in the time of pandemic with social distancing, we don't get around more. We don't get to encounter lawyers like me and ask the kind of questions we might normally do. So one of the things I've always promised people we'll answer your questions for free. We do that when people call us with potential cases. We sit and we tell them what we think about the case, whether or not something we can take, and we answer people's questions. We also know a lot of other folks who can help with areas of the law that we don't particularly practice in. So we're happy and flattered to be able to have this opportunity, and I feel personally blessed as a lawyer to be able to do this for people. I try to use my powers for good, and I'm going to do that right now with some questions. So in the time since our last show, I have had a couple questions come up. One of them is I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19 testing, and we've had a number, probably 20 of the corrections officers that I've represented in another case have asked me some questions about whether or not there can be mandatory testing for that. And I want to answer that question. But first, I'd like to ask a question I got from a woman named Julie, and this is an interesting question. So Julie asked me, Julie bought Six Flags passes. She paid over $600 season passes and meal passes for her kids, probably, because that's who goes, although we all like Six Flags, right? And I don't want to give away too much, but she's got someone in her family who is immune suppressed, without going into too much detail, and that he has to make an appointment to go. So they're not opening the park, and they're refusing to refund people their season passes. Well, that's just wrong. They had a contract where if you bought a season pass, they would open it, you'd be able to have free access to their park for the year, and if they don't give it, they should refund your money. That's a no-brainer. There's no issue. They can't keep the money and not open. I know the Cardinals have refunded their tickets. I'm a Cardinals season ticket holder. The Blues have refunded their season tickets, although now I'm excited about some Blues playoff hockey. We're number one in the West, the Blues are. Although, how about that they didn't even consider St. Louis as a playoff city? I thought that was kind of bogus, but I understand there's a high tax rate for people who are for players who come and play in the playoffs. They don't like that. The city taxes them a lot. Julie, to answer your question, they got to pay you. Write them an email, write them a letter, tell them you have to pay me. I had a contract with you, you breached it, pay me. And then when they don't, because they probably won't listen to you, go sue them in small claims court. So I don't know where you live. Six Flags is in Jefferson County, or you can go to St. Louis County. For $25, you pay a filing fee, and any type of a civil dispute you have with someone under $5,000, go to small claims court, file a claim, file up the paperwork, pay $25 to get service on Six Flags, ask for your $600 back plus your $25, and go court date and go do it. That's why we have small claims court, to redress conflicts between people or when something like this happens. So Julie, that's what you should do. Turning now to the question that I've got just from a lot of folks. So I understand that at many facilities in the Missouri Department of Corrections, the National Guard is setting up test sites, is going to test staff and offenders for COVID-19. Corrections officers do not want to have their liberty taken. They already give up a lot to be corrections officers. Corrections officers, they're called the forgotten force. They're the largest they're the largest officer force in the state of Missouri, and some of the hardest working people you'll ever have the pleasure to meet. They're a high population of veterans, and they're keeping our prisoners behind in prisons all the time, 24/7. So they're making the corrections officers be tested, and it's an affront to their liberty. Some of them have asked, got this question. Some have asked, hey, can we have some of our own medical personnel? My private doctor tests me. Can I not do the test? The answer from the DOC is no. You got to do the test. So there's a question about why does it matter where it gets done as long as it gets done, and the DOC has a history of challenging management or a combative relationship with many of the officers. There are also good DOC managers as well, wardens, assistant wardens, majors, lieutenants, but there is a relationship a little bit. The short answer to the question is I do think that you have to go through with the corona testing. The Department of Corrections, in their defense, they're managing a pandemic, an unusual situation. They don't want a COVID infection to go rampant among the prisoners. They are subject to liability for that. They're subjected to liability from officers and workers' compensation claims if there would be a injury or heaven forbid a death because of COVID contracted at a prison. They have a duty to do their due diligence. And my recommendation to all corrections officers is go through the testing. You all already give up a lot to do your job. And I don't say that lightly, but I think that you have to just do it. I think you have to get tested. And I would hope that this practice with the Department of Corrections is a robust testing procedure. I hope it's not a one and done. I hope they test weekly. I hope they take temperatures. I hope they do other things that would really address a pandemic from taking a foothold, or COVID infection from taking a foothold among the officer staff. And of course, the officers work so close to the prisoners, and have to, that if prisoners are going to get infected, officers are going to get infected. Of course, we're worried about the officers, so that's my question for all the great corrections officers who have sent me those questions. Get tested. Suck it up and do it. I know you don't want to. Many of you don't want to. Some of you do, but I think you got to do it. Hey, remember, under the law, that you're an employee at will, and especially since the state of Missouri has taken away a lot of the rights that officers had and other state of Missouri employers had to grieve, to have a civil service review of bad employment decisions. Many of those rights have been taken away. So as an at-will employee in Missouri and every other state in the union, you don't have many rights. An at-will employee can be fired for a good reason, no reason, or no reason at all, or bad reason, or a mistake. I often give the example, if you're working a cash register, they can say, hey, you took money out of the cash register. They fire you. The next day they find out, oh, we found someone else who took the money out of the cash register. You don't get your job back. An employer can fire you for a good reason, a bad reason, no reason at all, or a mistake. Under employment at will, and you don't have a right to your job back. That is the unfortunate lack of rights of employees. So you don't have that many rights. I see that Tina Botcher has asked me a question while we were doing this Facebook Live show, and how does it look for the Department of Corrections lawsuit after the Supreme Court arguments? It looks, I don't know. I did my best in the arguments. We've given them our best fight. It's with the Missouri Supreme Court. They're considering their decision. Just like when a jury's out or a court's making a decision, I don't comment on it. I really am at my most serene at that time. If you ever heard the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So when I'm trying a case to a jury, to a judge, to a Supreme Court, once I'm done talking, I'm done. I can't control it anymore. I've done my best, and we have been honored. It's truly one of the honors of my professional career to represent the corrections officers in this case. We gave it our all at trial. We whooped them. We won. We've given it all in the Court of Appeals. We whooped them. We won. We've gave it our all to the Supreme Court. We wrote a hell of a brief. It's on the Missouri Department of Corrections page on the Burger Law website. You can go there. You can read it. You can read their briefs. We put all the pleadings up there. We're transparent. We've shown y'all all the work we've done. It's there, so we gave it our all. It's in the Supreme Court's hands, and I mean, I pray for a good result, and I'm hopeful for a good result. But I'm resigned to their decision. I respect them as a court, and I trust they'll do the right thing. So thank you, Tina. Thank you, Tina, for saying you appreciate me. I appreciate that too. Let me go back, sorry, to some more questions that I have. that are coming up. My friend David said some bringing up a question. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze here. That brings up a good question. If a corrections officer brought COVID into a prison, would a prisoner have a claim against the prison, or would they have waived that right to being in prison? Prisoners waive a lot of rights. They're felons. They can't vote. There is a section, 29 U.S.C. section 1983. You've heard of 1983 claims. There's civil rights claims. There are different types of civil rights claims. There's claims, and like for instance, that poor man who was choked to death in Minneapolis, he's got a civil rights claim against those officers who committed a crime. As a citizen, police don't have a right to kill you. And I don't want to get farther into the politics of that, but that's what they did, and it was probably because he's black. They don't treat that. A month before, President Trump was implementing the white guys bringing AR-15s into the state capitol in Minneapolis, and within a month they're killing that poor man for allegedly forging a check. So, but if you're convicted of a crime and you're in prison, you have certain basic rights. You don't lose your citizenship. You don't lose your citizenship. You don't lose the fact that you're an American citizen. You may be a felon, but you're still an American citizen. You have basic rights. You get, food, medical care. You can't have people torture you. They have to do basic stuff to you. So, David, if COVID is brought into prison, and COVID has been brought into prisons, and it will be brought into prisons. So, if a prison acts if a corrections institution acts within the standard of care, and there is a very vigorous standard of care in prisons. There's a lot of prison experts. It's a robustly defined policies and procedures. I held up at a trial one time. I held up some of the policies and procedures. The policies and procedures in a prison are going to be 3 feet high. They're a very regimented area, so they're going to have policies and procedures about keeping COVID out. If it's in there, they're going to isolate prisoners. They're going to do their best. Now, certainly a prisoner is going to sue them, so they may assert a claim, but if a prison is doing the right thing, and I know with all the great officers in the state of Missouri, corrections officers, they're doing the right thing. We know it. I think they'd have a weak claim. I think it ought to get thrown out of court, frankly, for most. Now, if, on the other hand, if someone got a corona in a prison and they packed 20 other inmates into a small cell with the guy who's infected and make them stay there for 3 days, that violates standards of decency, and that would be improper, and they would have a claim. The question is, what's the remedy, and what are the injuries? So that would be something to take for to address. If they provide the medical care and the prisoner gets better, there's no damages. He was ill for a period of time. He had some pain and suffering for a period of time, but absent their demise or their death, I think their damages are limited as well. All right, let me go to another question. Let me go to the top of my list here because I kind of went down and kind of started. I imagine Brennan waits all week and gives me doozies. I'd imagine that most people have a connection to someone who has been hit by a train. The scenario is popular in movies, but very real for lots of people. Is it a wrongful death situation? What about intent? So when I was a puppy lawyer, my first job was as a railroad lawyer. I represented railroads. I bet you didn't know that, Brennan. So I know a lot about railroads and a lot about train law. I also know every Grateful Dead song where they talk about trains, and there's probably 20 of them. I'm an old Grateful Dead guy. I once did a bootleg tape for some of my buddies with every Grateful Dead train song, and there was more than you can say. The Great Northern coming out of Cheyenne from sea to shining sea, to quote one Grateful Dead lyric. So railroads have a duty of care to the public, but when trains hit cars, often it's the car not yielding the right of way to the train. Trains have the right of way at grade crossings. There are road signs, railroad crossing signs, or gates or lights where to warn motorists of the train, not vice versa. So, and there's also a case called Easterwood versus CSX. It's a Supreme Court case that my old boss, great lawyer, Bill Brasher, brilliant trial lawyer who I learned a lot from, was instrumental in getting the U.S. Supreme Court to render that decision, Easterwood versus CSX, that said that because of the highway sign program, it's called the Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices, all our stop signs and grade crossing signs, there's a manual that sets out uniform signs across the country, and because of federal legislation, that the federal law has preempted state wrongful death claims for grade crossing claims against railroads. So if you were injured or killed in a grade crossing accident, most likely your claims would be preempted by federal law and you would not be able to make a claim. However, there are exceptions, because exceptions to the rule. It's what keeps lawyers in business. There are some types of claims that aren't preempted, where for instance, if the railroad's obligated to cut away the vegetation so that the motorists can have a clear line of sight to the train coming and they don't do so, you can have a vegetation claim. If the railroads also have requirements to sound their horns when coming to crossings to warn motorists or pedestrians, if they don't sound the horn, then you may have a claim. They have a duty to not provide the public with access to the right-of-ways and in an area where they know that children are crossing. You get these in Chicago, excuse me, or other municipalities. I didn't bring a glass of water with me out today. So there's well-worn path cases. So if you have a case where kids, in the city, if kids live in one neighborhood and they want to get to the playground and then they have to go over a railroad trestle to get it, and there's a well-worn path and they see these kids everywhere, the railroad's got to do something about it. They got to block that, they got to control that egress, so you can have a claim for there. So it is a wrongful death claim. A lot of it's preempted. It's not an intentional act. I've never heard of a train driver in my life. Conductors and engineers are hardworking people too. I've never heard of anybody doing that on purpose. Danielle asks me, new question. My friend was hit by a driver while crossing the road. Oh, and I saw some of my other friends like Jeff Lunn, Brett Rich, some of my other buddies. So I did put on my my Facebook feed the other day some of my bees. I'm a beekeeper, and this is a great year for bees. My hives are humming. I've split some hives. I caught a swarm. I got all kinds of things I could talk to you about that I like to talk about. Jeff, you get a bottle of honey, and anybody else, if my honey comes in good this year, all my friends will get some too. Brett, I probably would get you some honey too. So, all right, let me go to another question. Let me go to a new question. My friend is hit by a driver while crossing the road, but the driver drove away before the police could get there. Do they have a claim? Yes. So, implicit in your question is that your friend was a pedestrian. Because if the friend was hit and not the car was hit, I assume your friend was hit. So the first thing you got to remember as a pedestrian is you got to cross within the right of way. And even if it's not a marked crossing, if you're crossing from sidewalk to sidewalk under the law, you have a right of way. So people think, oh, you're not. If there's not lines on the street, you can't cross. Not true. Because a lot of places don't have that. But if you're going up to a sidewalk at a corner, and then you cross, you have the right of way. Now you're not going to try to beat a car. The car is going to outweigh you by, 5,000 pounds. So don't be stupid. But there are cases where the drivers don't look, or they're speeding, or they come around a corner and you're crossing, or someone's slow. Older folks and kids cross streets. I have got kids, and my parents are older, and I know old people like Jeff Lund. So if you're with an older person and they walk slow, then you got to go slow. So the driver may have violated your right of way and injured you. Now the problem is they left. So what you do when something like that happens is you get that driver's information. Get their license plate. Take a picture of their license plate. Take a picture of their car. Don't remember it, you won't remember it. Take a picture. Even if they say they're going to stay there, take a picture. If you see a witness and the witnesses say they're going to stay there, get that witness's name. Take a picture of their driver's license so you can have it. You want to record everything at an accident scene. You can, because you never know if someone's going to leave. You never know if a police officer, who are very hardworking and very well-intentioned, you never know if they're going to forget to put a witness's name in a police report. I have it all the time where someone says, we just had this. There was all these witnesses. They were all sitting there. They gave the police officer their name. They knew that tractor trailer ran the red light and crashed into me. We get the police report. Crickets. Nothing in there. And then we can't find those folks. So get it yourself. Do it yourself while you're at the scene. Now the problem, though, is let's say you're hit as a pedestrian and the driver leaves. I don't think you have an uninsured motorist claim. So if you're in a car and you get a hit and run driver, you have an uninsured motorist claim. You carry $25,000 minimum for uninsured motorist coverage in the state of Missouri. You may have more. If you ever want to renew your car insurance, get more underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. Get $250,000 in uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. It's not that expensive, and it's worth it. What if you're driving down the road? Brett Rich is watching. He's a friend of mine. He's a real rich lawyer, real rich, successful lawyer. He always wears the coolest hats, too. It's not because he's bald. It's because he has a sense of style. So let's say he's driving his family. He's got 2 smart kids and a wife, and let's say they're hit. What if the person who hit him only has $25,000 in coverage? Brett should have, he's smart, have underinsured motorist coverage, where if someone who hits you is underinsured, you get more coverage for your injuries. Have uninsured motorist coverage, so if someone hits you while you're walking in this beautiful summer weather, that you have plenty of coverage for your injuries, wage loss damages, medical expenses, etc. Davey asked me, if I'm driving, new question. Davey asked me, I'm driving in town, someone slings open their car door and I'm unable to stop or swerve and hit it. Would I have a case against them? Absolutely. You're driving and they're driving. Well, you have a claim, so that's interesting. It depends how it happens. So let's say you're driving along and you're two cars on a road going together, and some idiot opens their door because they're being a jerk and you hit them. Yes, you have a claim. You can't open the car door to a moving vehicle. There's rules of the road. Look at the Missouri rules of the road, the Missouri Driver's Guide. You can't do that. It's dangerous. You could fall out. You have to have yourself in. But let me ask you this, Davey. What if you're in the city? What if you're on South Grand? You're going to go to a couple of my great, I don't eat meat, so I happen to be a vegetarian. So there's great restaurants on South Grand like Lulu's, which is where I and my wife had our first date and where we got engaged, and or Treehouse or Big Head Pizza. What if you're going there? And what if? But when you're driving in the city, people open their car doors all the time because they're parking on the side of the street and they're getting out of your car. I do that. Well, and you hit their door. Well, I still think you have a claim, because when you're parking and you're getting, it's kind of common sense. When you're parking and you get out of your car, if you're parking, you're going to get out of your car. You got to watch. You look in your side mirror and you make sure it's safe before you do a car. But on the other hand, also, Davey, if you're the one driving, you also drive far enough away from those parked cars on the side, because you know someone is liable to either pull out or park their car. So there's some comparative fault on either side. I would hope in that situation it's only a property damage deal and there's no personal injury. If it's a property damage deal, just give it to your insurance company. Let them sort it out with the other people. That's why you have property damage coverage. Get your property damage coverage, get your car fixed, get back on the road. Let them do the same. David asks, when do you think that St. Louis will completely open back up? Does the COVID virus still scare you as much as it did in the beginning? When will Burger Law open back up in your downtown office? Thank you, David. Great questions. Well, I wrote a plan to open up. I shared it I do a mass email about every 2 weeks to about 20 or 30,000 of my closest friends. In my last one, I wrote a plan for opening up, what my office is going to do when it does, and we're going to open up in about 2 weeks. I was talking to 2 of my folks today about it. I modeled it after the St. Louis City reopening plan. The St. Louis City and St. Louis County have given great, I think it's Exhibit B or Attachment B for commercial businesses in the city. I didn't look at the county one, but they have great plans they've done pursuant to CDC regulations, and they have great plans and ideas. I wrote one, so we are going to reopen. I think St. Louis will slowly open up over the next 30 to 60 days. I think that, to answer your questions directly, I think that there's going to be another peak of COVID cases after the Memorial Day festivities. Some of the people in the know, doctors and stuff that I either know or I've read or heard of, thought way before Memorial Day, not after we saw the pictures of those stupid people at the Lake of the Ozarks headlining CNN and every other news outlet. Even before that, doctors thought there would be a peak 7 to 14 days after the Memorial Day. So it is now 6 days. It is now 5 days after Memorial Day. People are going to start getting symptoms. So you watch. In about 7 days, we're going to have another peak. Then that needs to dissipate. We need to flatten the curve again. Let our healthcare system catch up to that. And then I think we'll be more open for business, but it's be a new paradigm. It's going to be a new way of doing business. I hope so. I hope certain things are going to change. I wear masks. I went in a store today, wear a mask. I wear masks. I keep wipes. I instruct my kids to do that. We're slowly starting up as a parent. I'm starting to let my kids have socially distanced visits with friends. I let my daughter have 2 friends over today. They're staying distant. They're swimming today, and I was watching them and I was talking to them about it, and I know their parents and their families, and I know they have been quarantining at home. I have also had, for the first time, this is all this week, this is all changing, it's all rapidly changing. I also had my parents over to be with us for my 2-year-old son's birthday, and so but the COVID virus does still scare me. The problem, I think, is we're going to get complacent about it. And we're so driven to reopen, and the economy is going to drive this decision rather than health professionals. And I'm concerned that if that's the case, we're going to have, it still scares me, we're going to have this. You know, so there's 2 things that I did, and I'm a little bit of a tangent, please, sorry, is I read a book and I watched a movie that I recommend. So I watched Contagion. It's a great movie with a bunch of stars. It's about 9 years old. I forget who directed it, but I know like Matt Damon's in it. All these famous actors are in it. It's great. So watch, if it's on HBO, it's on different stuff, maybe Netflix. Watch Contagion. It's prophetic about what's happening now. Now the disease there was a little bit different. It killed 25% of the people. Which is a lot more than COVID, but COVID still kills a large number of people over 80 years old and a large number of normal people, and then people have residual health effects. So Watch Contagion. And the other thing I did is I am about halfway through. It's a long book. It's a 1,000-page book. But I'm reading The Stand by, now I'm mind blanking on his name. He wrote The Shining and Carrie. Stephen. I love Stephen King. He's a great author. I mean, I know it's a horror genre, but boy, what a great writer he is. And I am really enjoying the movie The Stand. He wrote it in the 90s. And the version I wrote, he added about another 400 pages in. He's one of the most prolific writers of our generation, a jewel in American literature. So read The Stand if you're looking for a great book. That is a great book. And it's about a pandemic too. So this pandemic thing, this has all been tracked out before. This is nothing new. It may not be that, there may be a lack of leadership as some people think about the response to it, or a varied leadership. There's not like one central person like the president saying, here's what to do. There's different governors are doing different stuff, counties are doing different stuff, businesses are doing different stuff. It's a hodgepodge, which I don't think is the best response to it. Thank you for the Stephen King comment. I knew it was Stephen King. I've read so many of his books. I really enjoy them. They're scary books. Those are books when you read, like you're scared while you're doing it. Read It. I know they came in those movies. But anyway, The Stand is a great book. Some people think it's his best. I think I answered David's questions. I'm going to keep going. Thank you for helping people and answering their questions. You're welcome. You're welcome. You guys ever watch Moana? I've been watching Moana a lot with my son, and my favorite song is You're Welcome by The Rock. Let me get down to see what other questions are coming up on my feed. Thank you, Burger Law. We put up the link on our comments here to the class action page. Thank you, someone, for doing that. Adam says that. I get Adam's comment. Terry, how are you? Terry, how's Florida? And I know Dan Hayes. I do know Dan Hayes. Terry, your daughter, Casey, is one of the smartest, most pleasurable person I have ever had the pleasure of working with. She is an amazing paralegal. She is my, now I hope my wife is not watching, because Casey, your daughter and I have, I think both of us, it's our longest, most successful relationship with someone in the opposite sex. Purely platonic, but Casey and I have been together for 10 years. She's my right-hand person. She's amazing. And I am blessed with getting to work with her. She's really good at what she does. She's a pro and lives a great life. I love her joie de vivre. I'm really proud of what she's done with her life as well. Not that she didn't have a great start from you, Terry, but she's an absolute rock star. So Terry, did you know that I'm the most Google-reviewed law firm in St. Louis? I think still, yeah. And you know, most of those reviews talk about Casey and not me. It's kind of funny. All right, here's a question from Crystal. Are employers required to provide proper PPE during this pandemic, as well as during basic daily activities? Also, should they be required to provide a sufficient amount of PPE for all employees? So, under the St. Louis City recommendations, the St. Louis City and County recommend that. So we did this a couple of podcasts ago. I have a podcast too, Lawyer v. Lawyer. A couple Facebook Live shows ago, Crystal. There's varied laws that govern us. There's federal laws, there's state laws, there's municipal laws. So we have this hodgepodge of laws that govern us. It goes back to how we set up our government in 1789 with our Constitution. Federalism versus state and local control. And we also have municipal stuff. So state and local, St. Louis City and County and other local localities recommend and require employers to provide PPE. The way I wrote my policy is I asked all my employees to get their own PPE, masks, and that kind of stuff, more because there's a shortage of that. So I figured if all 10 or 12 of our staff was getting their own PPE, hand sanitizer, hand wipes, gloves if they want it. That gets them the kind that they want and they're comfortable with. There's different kinds of masks, there's different kinds of stuff. And I also wanted to get everybody, all our staff, because in their personal life too, not that I'm their dad or anything, but I am a dad, get them in the habit of using that and using that in their daily life. So I wanted to get that done. They all have it. I'm asking them to bring it to the workplace. But I've also said, if you don't have it or you can't get it or anything, I'll get it for you. So I have requested, various of my staff are out, we're getting masks, and we're going to get that. And I want to get Burger Law masks, and we're going to order those, and we're going to give them out to people. So we need to do that. Casey and I have been talking about it. Speaking of Casey, we've been talking about it. We don't want to get cheap masks. We want to get them. We also didn't want to be in the rush of getting masks, so we need to get that. So they should get it. You can use yours, but I think an employer should have it, and they should have it available, and yes, they should get it. I mean, that's part of, just like, it depends on the employer, just like in my office, I get people computers and pens and paper. Well, now I got to get them PPE if they don't get their own. Similarly, if you work at the Chrysler plant or the GM plant, or if you work in a restaurant or you work in an office building or whatever, they should have that for you. I'm asking all my employees to wear masks through the lobbies, and I'm asking them to use something to press the elevator buttons and stuff so they don't have to do it. I have a question from Michael. Michael, Gary, you said you're a Cardinals season ticket holder. Who is the one player the Cardinals can't do without? Yachty. Sorry that I took so long to say that. Yachty not only is the best catcher in baseball, the way he handles these pitchers, he handles 20 pitchers, all these kids, all these veterans with egos. He handles it without a plum. You don't even notice it. It's like sometimes, and I don't want to compare myself to Yachty. I'm not gonna, but I have had times when I've done good trials and good depots and stuff where people go, "Wow, you look like you know what you." It comes so natural. They don't know that I'm spending all night the night before memorizing stuff, and they don't know how hard I work on my craft and hone my craft. Because, so like Yachty, like a good lawyer, Yachty, you don't even notice it. He's so smooth. He throws people out at second like it's nobody's business. He's calling these pitches. He's handling these batters. The amount of stuff that Yachty has to do is amazing, and you don't even notice it because he's so smooth. And he's amazing. You know that year that he lost like 40 pounds? I was at that opening day. I saw him come out. He looked like a new man. So he's like one of the most dedicated guys. And the other great thing about Yachty, he is never not working on his craft. He is always doing the next thing, working at it, working out. To do what he's done for 15 years, it's unheard of, especially with his knees as a catcher. It's crazy. It's crazy. I love Yachty. That's the one shirt, the one jersey I have, and I wear it all the time. Jennifer, pro tip I just learned. High five, not praying hands. Thank you, Jennifer. Jason Stein, how are you, my friend? If I get into a car, here's Jennifer asks, if I get into a car accident and someone else caused and I don't have a valid driver's license at the time of the crash. So Jennifer and I were just working on a case. She's one of my ace paralegals. So here's a great question from Jennifer. Let me restate it. If I get into I don't want to go too long. It's been 40 minutes. People get tired of listening to me. If I get into a car accident that someone else caused and I do not have a valid driver's license at the time of the crash, but I have car insurance, do I still have a claim if I'm injured? Yes, you do. You can get a ticket for not having a car, for not having a valid driver's license. But people have driver's licenses that expire. Sometimes you people forget. Right now, it's hard as hell to get into the to get a new driver's license. So yes, you have a claim. And I had a trucking case where we sued the trucking company. It was a great case. We settled it. We got a good result. The judge entered so the defendant truck driver did not have a valid commercial driver's license at the time of the crash. I couldn't even get it into evidence. I wanted to shove that so far down their throat, and I wanted to jump in front of the jury and say, this guy didn't even have a valid commercial driver's license. The reason why he did not was he did not update his medical. And because he did not update his medical, they yanked his commercial driver's license. And so you're driving an 80,000-pound tractor trailer. You don't have a commercial driver's license. Are you kidding me? That you'd think that would be a big deal. You think I could make a lot of hay about that as representing the injured person. I couldn't. My client couldn't believe it. He could not believe it that we could not get it in. But we could not. We could not. Mr. Lacey, who's a great guy. So the judge entered a motion in limine. So what that means is that courts enter preliminary rulings on evidence. If they don't think something should come in, they'll enter what's called an order in limine or a grant of motion in limine, saying you cannot get certain evidence into a trial. The judge did that, and it's only a preliminary ruling. You may hear a plane overhead. I'm sorry. I am doing this outside because it's a beautiful day. I couldn't get in evidence. Isn't that crazy? But I couldn't. So just because there's not a license, don't think that you get that in evidence. And let me tell you something else. What about seatbelt? Seatbelt in Missouri and in Illinois, in Missouri more specifically, you can't really get that in evidence. They just get a 1% reduction in the comparative fault, 1% reduction in the ruling. And when courts make those decisions about the about the license, they get, yeah, you didn't have a license. I get it. They get it. But they think they make a decision, they make a ruling that the prejudicial effect would so outweigh the pro value of that it shouldn't come in evidence. They'll do that sometimes too. Let's say you have one beer, but you're not intoxicated. That's not coming in evidence because you're not intoxicated, you're not impaired, but the prejudicial effect of that is unprejudicial. All evidence is prejudicial. I've argued this a lot. The other side will say, that evidence... I hope you can... All right, now you can still see me again. So I just had something funny happen. I had my phone tell me that it was too hot. I did not lose my connection, although I probably lost you and probably all my viewers. I did not lose it, but it said my phone was too hot because I was sitting outside in the sun. So, but we've been going about 45. I think I'm going to wrap it up soon anyway. Just pause, please bear with me while I get my holder here back in order. So anyway, that is what you do. If something is unduly prejudicial, the court may rule that you can't bring in evidence, which is fair. I get it. I understand. And it's probably an appropriate decision. So let me see if we got any more questions. Burger Law, 429 5-star reviews as of today. Thank you. Thank you. What about state? That or to contest a COVID test. You don't have the ability to contest it. Bob Guller asks a question. Gary's infrared thermometer arrives next week. Yes. Brett Rich is not bald. He is follically challenged, he tells me. I am the greatest St. Louis Cardinal of all time list. We just posted on the list there. David Klee, I bought PPE equipment for my staff and a touchless infrared thermometer. Wow. David's like a high spender. David, I think that's great. What about state employees? I think I got all the questions. And if I missed your question, I apologize. We always answer, I've mentioned this before, we always answer questions for free. You can email me at Gary Berger. And can I just tell you guys that I am wearing pants? When you wear some videos, you don't have to wear pants. But when you wear this seersucker suit, it's so damn sweet that you got to wear the whole deal. So I am wearing pants, but no shoes. And I make some jokes, and we try to be light in this thing too and be a little bit funny. I think I'm hilarious, although most of my jokes are dad jokes. Which I will tell you dad jokes if you want. So Join us next week, next Friday, same time, same place. We're going to talk anybody else's burning questions, burning desires. You can always also ask us questions at burgerlaw.com. Email me at gary@burgerlaw.com. Email us at info@burgerlaw.com. Go to our contact page. Fill out a contact page on our website. Go to our Facebook page. Message us. We got folks answering those all the time too. If I didn't answer your question, please let me know. If you got a new question, let me know. If you disagree with my question, my answers, let me know. And I will, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to revisit some of my answers or be more fulsome, or there's always nuance to everything. So anyway, I'm going to get going now. Thank everybody for your time. I appreciate it. Have a great and safe week. Enjoy the weekend. It's officially summer. Thanks very much.